Hey folks, I'm Joao, the CEO of Stealth White Label Agency, and my mission is pretty simple: to empower marketing agency owners to grow, scale, and build businesses that thrive. Over the past 3 years, I've led Stealth, helping 700 plus agencies achieve smarter, sustainable growth. We've generated 650,000 quality leads, invested 30 million in ads that actually convert, and ran campaigns across 70 niches worldwide. Now, I'm excited to share something new with you. We're launching the Growth Lab Sessions, a podcast designed to help agency owners learn what's working right now in marketing, sales, and business growth. Each episode, I'll bring you insights, strategies, and conversions with industry leaders who are making a real impact. No fluff, just proven tactics and real stories to help you scale your agency. Let's dive in. Today's guest is Hunter Harris, the CEO of GigaBrain, a company specializing in helping Amazon brands scale rapidly. Their team of experts provide proven strategies and a 5-step process to boost traffic, elevate conversions, and increase sales, allowing business owners to focus on growth without the operation headaches. Hunter, welcome to Growth Lab Sessions.
Let's go!
Yeah, let's go. Dude, thanks for being on. And, I started getting to know you after the Agency Founders event. And we really hit a vibe, kind of similar lifestyles, traveling a lot, being entrepreneurs, and really focus on scaling our agency. So, let's kick things off. You have an agency focused on Amazon brands. You do have a 5-step process at GigaBrain. So can you tell us more about the 5-step process that you have helping Amazon brands scale?
Right. Honestly, it's like 67 steps, but I put 5 steps front facing because we don't want to confuse people too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, ideally what happens is we find brands that are a really good fit for growth. So with how I run my business is I play long-term games with long-term people. And in order to really do that on Amazon, we first have to run through the market, understand that is there actually demand there? Because there's a main cardinal rule inside Amazon, which is, it's more of a demand capture platform rather than a demand generation platform. Of course, you can come in and kind of generate demand, but just not kind of the business model that I run through. So typically our process is first we run analytics for the product to make sure that this product is something that's going to fit inside the marketplace. From there, we build an actionable strategy encompassing everything A to Z based on all the trials and errors that we've had over and over and over again. And then the third one is getting like really, really deep knowledge of the product that we're looking to scale. I think that's something that most people kind of have a fall off on, where I get really, really granular on every intention, every USP, everything behind the product, and build a database that can be distributed to all the team, right? I think that's probably the biggest thing where I see most teams mess up, because they don't compartmentalize the true why people are buying that product right off the bat, and they're not always building really structured and in-depth marketing avatars and understanding kind of how that positioning happens. So that's kind of like that third pillar, is just deep product knowledge. Typically what I'm doing is I map out the whole niche from like all the competitors, right? Get as much market insights as possible. And we've built a ton of proprietary software that basically goes and scrapes the market and it'll run it through all the different data modules that I've built. So I'm looking at reviews, doing review analysis, which is kind of like the surface level basic stuff. And then from there, we take all that data, combine it with the SEO, and then combine it with the marketing acumen in order to position the products in the market to be as relevant and highly converting as possible. From there, once we finish that compartmentalization, we move into building that actions that are going to get there. So typically it's like a 45-day sprint where we are fixing up all the content, the angling, A to Z inside of the marketing. And then we start running ads. And that's the fun part when we start, really, really moving it. And Amazon is a lot, in my opinion, a lot different than DTC. It's a lot more financial modeling. So a lot of what we do is just building all these financial forecasts and modeling, and it's really fun. I really enjoy it. So yeah, then we build the financial models, then we scale. That's kind of the gist of our 5-step process from like a high level.
For sure. So, I mean, it sounds super intricate, and I do want to take a step back and ask, what are the types of brands that qualify to work with you?
Definitely not clothing. I prefer brands and products that serve and solve something in the market. So, whether it be supplements, whether it be weird products, probably some of my favorites. So, like, think things like tape. We do really, really well in. We sell fertilizer. We sell random gadgets that solve some sort of need in the market. Those typically do really well. Unless the brand is doing really well off of Amazon, our prerequisite is to be at $50,000 a month. And if the brands aren't at $50,000 a month, typically we just help them. And I have a lot of information. I have a YouTube channel, and I'll send a lot of information to help them get to that point where we can then one day have an engagement and scale them.
Yeah. So they got to be doing $50,000 a month on Amazon.
Ideally, yes, unless they're very, very large outside of Amazon in terms of, I don't want to say very large, but if they're doing like 100K, 150K a month outside of Amazon, depending on the type of product, we'll consider scaling them. I'm super blunt, so it's hard to set like a very hard rule of like who you work with and who you won't. I have niches I won't touch, like clothing, because it's just, the way I try to structure it comes from a keyword basis. When you look at how Amazon truly works from a fundamental search perspective, we have pockets of search that have problems that are looking to get those problems resolved. And when you have a clothing, for instance, a t-shirt, it's very hard to create the environment where you're going to have a very profitable product at scale, because you're competing with hundreds of thousands of brands for the same keywords. Whereas if we get a little bit farther out, and we go into a tape, for instance, you're competing with a lot of different brands, but typically it's like 40 to 60, 100 max. And from that, a lot of those brands don't have good marketing, one, and two, they're not good at differentiating or having a good product. So with that, there's obviously tons of opportunity to come in with someone who's, and this is a big point, native with Amazon. Because if you work with someone that's not a specialist in Amazon, the psychology of the consumer is so much different that I don't like to be cocky, but we just run laps. These guys don't know what that, some of them obviously do. It's a numbers game, but I'd say like 90%, 95%, it's like these people run around, their heads cut off. And I wrote an article about this, and it was like, it makes me sad to see, but then it makes me really happy because I can provide so much value. And when we take those brands in, like, we really make a difference in terms of, the most important metric is profit, but to me, because some brands just want market share, but we really make a significant difference pretty quickly.
Yeah. So what are the common bottlenecks that you solve for Amazon brands?
There's a lot of them, because Amazon is such a complex funnel, yet super simple, right? And a lot of this kind of goes back into the marketing basics, where we have to start top of funnel down. Mm-hmm. And when I talk to some brands, they're just like not relevant for keywords. Their SEO sucks. They don't have good imagery, and they're focused on A+ content. If you don't know what A+ content is, it's basically like inside of your product page, you have like main images and data, and then you go all the way down, and there's like a section where it's important, like you can do cross sells and it's good for indexing and stuff. But that's not what you focus on early on in the process. And I see it time and time again where these brands are like, how do we scale? I've been focusing on the A+ content. And it's just like, Okay, break it down mathematically from a mathematical standpoint, the most important metric when we look at the algorithm is your relevance. So your click through and your conversion rate. So that being said, it's kind of like, I'm sure, running ads, right? Where your thumbnail is, and same with YouTube, right? Like the thumbnail is so important that is what I start on right off the bat. And to give a little bit more context behind it, because I have a YouTube channel, by changing my thumbnail in my YouTube channel, I can increase my watch time anywhere from 4 or 5 minutes sometimes, just by having a different thumbnail. So it's the same concept in Amazon where we change that, and if we can solve the problem before everyone else can solve the problem, because consumer has the problem in their head, right? I have a problem, I'm doing a search, I want to solve it. If we can get all that information up right at the front, it allows you to increase your click-through relevance, and it pushes that whole Amazon flywheel.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about thumbnail, the first thing I think about is increasing CTR, but you were saying that it increases watch time in YouTube, right? But like, how does that cross over to Amazon? So let's say the thumbnail increases CTR, but then would you say that it increases conversion rate as well? Like having a better thumbnail?
Yeah. So having it's a main image, right? But having a better main image definitely increases your conversion rate.
Yeah.
And I can show you an example of a niche that I was just looking at, Mazteec gum, and the purpose behind it for most men is to improve your jawline, improve your facial structure, and a lot of people don't include that in the marketing. And the product that I ended up purchasing solved that problem from the search. I'm looking through 40, 50 of the same product that's probably all the exact same. Yet the
Yeah.
difference is they understood their marketing avatar and they solved the problem through the main search, and I purchased it. And to be honest, the product fucking sucked. The product came, it's got like chemicals in the gum, it's got like all this shit I don't like. And I'm like, shit, maybe I should start a brand and just, take over this niche because I would be able to dominate them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've seen those. They've become really popular. I've thought about buying it, and then I started getting into the research about it and seeing if it's good or bad for you. And then I just dropped off in that buyer's journey. But, taking a step back, how did you get excited about creating an agency for Amazon brands?
Yeah, that came through a long journey. I would say 2021, I was basically a full-time crypto trader, total degen. I wanted sleep. I had $500,000 positions open all the time, and I made a lot of money. I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, what do I do? And that was right around then that I went down my sobriety journey too. So complete life change. Like I used to run a crypto group called what was it called? Flippers Anonymous. Basically like an AA group for degenerates. It's like the opposite of AA. It was like all of us were in there crazy. Everyone had too much money from the crypto. We were like partying, doing all this crazy stuff, and from that I decided like, hey, this life is a little bit too much for me. So I pivoted a little bit. One of my best friends one of my he had huge influence on me, was a huge Amazon seller. He was doing 100 million a year, and we went to Ukraine to go on a trip, and we went through all Europe having fun. Ended up meeting with his PPC team, and I was like, damn, like this is cool. These guys are fucking doing cool ass shit. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, do you think I'd be good at Amazon? He's like, bro, you fucking crush it. You got good at marketing, this and that. So I took some of the capital from the crypto days, and I went headfirst into a brand like a total degenerate. And it worked for a while until it didn't work. And I was scaling my brand on Amazon. It was getting 30, 40K a month. And I didn't do the fundamentals from a product research perspective. Well, I did. I had like a Chinese connection that said I was good from an IP standpoint, but I ended up getting like this lawsuit where they took down like 150 sellers at one time, and I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't really have the cash to do it. So it was like, and this is a game Amazon sellers still play to this day, and now I know how to maneuver it, but back then I didn't have that skill set. And when that happened, it was like, okay, I have a product that's like 10% margins. I picked a niche that was really competitive, like very competitive. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I had a choice. It was either to go to the lawsuit. So I talked to my attorney. My attorney said, hey, you're good, but it's because of the level of this case, it's going to cost you like 20 or 30K to fight it. I had like 15K left in inventory, and I was like, I did the math. I was like, shit, I don't think that this is going to be worthwhile from a 10% margin standpoint. I'm better off kind of folding it and building another brand. But at that point, my cash was too low, so I was kind of in a position where I was like, I love Amazon. I got really good at it. Spent all this time learning it, and now I got taken down from an IP lawsuit. So it was about that time that I ended up, getting first few clients that needed help on their Amazon presence. In the past, I had hired a few agencies, and they were just awful. So I knew that there was a gap in the market where like people needed someone like me. But honestly, I had no agency experience. I just kind of like, some people wanted to hire me, and it was actually like a happenstance situation where I was at dinner, and this couple was next to me, and they're like, oh, you do Amazon? We want to launch a product. And, it was like my first client was literally just from dinner, and he wasn't even trying to build an agency. So that's how it started.
What year was that?
That must have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, so like around 2022.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Okay, so then you got your first client, and then you changed your mindset to, I'm going to help brands scale, and I'm going to be an agency, right?
I've always wanted to be a brand owner and I still, have that desire. And when I look at the business, there is a few things why I'm not a brand owner currently. And it really boils down to distribution, cash, and some skills that I don't necessarily have. And when you look at how I've structured my business, it's actually better for a lot of reasons for me than being a brand owner, particularly because I can work with people that are way better at the shit I'm not good at, particularly IP, because that's it. It's very nuanced, the IP stuff. I'm getting a lot better at it just because I've been dealing with it for so much. But two, and you see it with the aggregators that come in and purchase a lot of brands, and that's probably what I'll venture towards next. And I'm helping a lot of brands right now structure and prepare for exit. I'll more than likely start buying brands and then becoming I don't want to say a full-on aggregator, but more than likely I'll become a flipper of Amazon brands because our systems are so effective. And when you look at, it's nice to have 6-7K retainers, but when you look at the value we provide, for instance, that tape product we took from 30K a month, they're on Amazon for 2 years or a year, they trying to scale it, couldn't really go. We took that product to 130K a month, within not that long. And when you look at the EBITDA increase, we added almost from the bottom line around $250,000 to 300K. So when you look at that from an exit multiple of anywhere from a 3 to 5x, once it keeps increasing, we added almost $1 million or so to their exit multiple. And from that, I'm not even getting 10% of that. And logically for me, it makes more sense to eventually come in and acquire the brands and or partner from more of an equity standpoint now that we have more cash. But I do truly love specific clients. It's not that I hate anyone, but I truly enjoy people that push my mindset to the next level. And I particularly find that with some of our larger clients, like my clients doing $100 million a year, $50 million a year. Typically there's a different level of appreciation behind my systems because I can come and I'll show them kind of my logic, my systems, my software, the things I built. And they're like, holy, what is this, Hunter? Like, this is crazy,
Mm-hmm.
And you don't necessarily get that same type of response with someone that's just launching their brand. And the amount of, I guess, the amount of value, right? Ultimately, we make money based on what the value we can contribute to society is. The amount of value I can contribute to society is far, far greater when we move into much larger brands. So I think that was a long way of answering that question.
Yeah, and just to contextualize, like to agency owners, right? If you think about agency owners listening to this, they're kind of thinking like, what is Hunter talking about? And, my view on this, it's like 3 years ago, you started being a service provider to Amazon brands. And, you've been able to close more businesses, right? You've been able to close more Amazon brands, increase your retainer. You have been focused on growing your agency, on building ops around it, on making it more efficient, on getting more results for your clients. But when you look at the future, right, you obviously want to make a lot more money than you're making today. I think everybody listening to this wants to make more money than they're making today, right? But in the agency space, you are really confined to retainers, right? And so one way that agency owners are looking at really scaling their businesses and being able to make $50, $100 million a year is by having a revenue model that's more scalable. And retainers are not scalable. And so I guess when you look at this scenario and you look at the rules that you're playing, you're like, how do I make more money? And the way to do that is by partnering with brands, right? Or taking in equity in the brands that you work with. So then when you get crazy results for them, you're going to get a bigger cut than you would by having a 5, 10, 15, 20K retainer. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%, right? So that's kind of the logic I look at. And now when I structure my deals, I'm looking for larger incentives, whether it be top line growth or exit incentives. So those are honestly, I think, some of my favorites, is because when we do an exit, you get much deeper into the financial modeling and breakdown from a P&L standpoint. And I personally just really enjoy it. Like, how are we structuring, one-off payments? How are we structuring subscription payments? How do we move things into development rather than your net profit? So or not net profit, but your bottom line. You can structure it in different ways so that when someone comes to purchase your brand, they're not going to look at that as just a typical liability. It's more like an investment, so it doesn't affect the multiple on the end, even though it's still an expense. So it's just really fun going deeper into the nuances there. And I'm still, I want to say, young in my journey. I really am, right? We hit 100,000 a month in December. So from that, you start to realize what you're saying, right? Is there's only so much. You can scale retainers like a lot, but you start dealing with more and more people. And my mission is to work 45 minutes a day if I want, and be able to travel the world, do what I want, relax, not have to talk to anyone. I don't want to manage people, and ultimately it's like the polar opposite of what an agency really is.
Yeah.
Right? But you can fix that with systems. And it's kind of like this thing, it took me a while to understand, where I was like, I convinced myself of the hype. I was like, yeah, you build the systems, you don't have to work anymore, but I didn't really believe it. Like, deep down, I was like, there's no way you don't have to work. But sure enough, it's working. Like, on my personal journey, I had a partner that wasn't supporting me in terms of what I needed and for my growth trajectory. And with that, I'm sure any human that's gone through a breakup, it's hard for the first, week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And as an entrepreneur, when you have a big business and something like that happens, and I see it all the time. I see another Amazon agency right now going through divorce. That shit's way harder, and if you're managing all these people and you have all this stuff, it can get overwhelming and very scary. And that's why I have so much appreciation. Like, the past 2 or 3 weeks, like, I came into this year like, we're going to rip it, we're going to scale like crazy, and then reality hit where I hadn't done enough personal growth. I had some things in my closet I hadn't fixed. I haven't leveled up as an entrepreneur to the point where I'm going to be able to elevate. And these things kind of happen. But thank fucking God that I am a systems freak, because the past 2 or 3 weeks, realistically, I've clocked in, 3-4 hours a week of like actual work, and my business is still growing. And that's because I have gone keep in mind, anyone that knows me knows I spend like 70, 80 hours a week normally, like in terms of like crazy grinding. I'm like building systems and stuff. But it's bought me like those past 3 weeks. And the reality is, if I really didn't want to work, I probably wouldn't have to, like, to an extent, like I still have to there's some maneuvering and stuff. But what it shows me is agency can be like that. It can be really systemized. It can be the point where you don't really have to work. And it really incentivizes me. Like, if it can be like this here at $2 million a month or $3 million a month, there has to be a way. There's a series of systems that I can create that'll elevate me and my brand to that point where I don't have to work and I can still do it. Yet I obviously want to work because I love it. It's my mission.
Yeah. I mean, you do work a lot. And so I've seen you work like 12 hours a day. When you're that kind of person, I don't think you can actually stop working. You're just going to feel like you're missing something. You're probably going to start working on something else. Like if you're working on your agency or on your brands for an hour a day, you're probably going to pick up something else.
But it's moved into the personal journey now. So like, as you map it out, things like move. And what I'm realizing is like, I don't know, because some people scale to the moon and they're like super out of shape and, they don't have good personal lives and stuff. So I don't know. I don't know how they do it, because for me, I feel like, the chair, right? We have like family, friends, business, relationship, right? Like those are the core pillars. And for me, I'm a pendulum, I'll be honest. And it's probably has something to do with my degenerate days. There's a reason why I was a total degenerate, partying and doing all this crazy shit. Because I like craziness, and that's part of why I like being a founder. And a lot of the work that I've been doing recently is unwinding that and being like, am I self-sabotaging? What am I doing here that is causing the freaking chaos? Because if I'm being honest, I caused a lot of this chaos, and it took me this personal journey where I'm like, I'm not working, to realize that my team doesn't need me. My systems work. I don't need to be on the client calls, and I'm going in there and like creating this crazy,
Yeah.
Like, I don't need
What's your team structure?
So my pod structure, I have a brand manager at the top, and the brand manager basically is dealing with all client calls. And then below that, I have an account manager, and then I have a PPC manager, and then I have a graphics design artist, and that's my typical pod structure. Right now, I have one brand manager that is managing 2 pods. As we scale, it's going to shift a little bit. But since our systems are so effective right now, it's working fine.
Yeah. What are some of the systems that, like, when you think about the top 3 systems that you have, that allow you to not work if you don't want to? Like, can you boil it down to 3? Or is just like many different ones?
I think you have to stack so many different systems in different parts of the business. I think from a core pillar of the business that's going to help the most is a time tracking software like Hubstaff or Time Doctor, if you use it correctly. So for me, I do a lot of API back-end work, and I create custom reports. But with that, it builds such a psychological element with your team that you don't want them to be like, I'm being watched, but you're being audited, right? Trust but verify. That has a huge impact because people aren't going to mess around as much. Even if they're, and I know time theft happens, right? But even if they're doing time theft, it's going to be at like 70% or 80% of what it would be without something like that. So having a software like that for accountability too, ClickUp, I mean, that thing it's just so powerful. And then 3 is going to be, I mean, there's so many, like So you need a Slack, from in my opinion, is really important. And then you need to be able to build all the custom workflows with Zapier, Make, N8N. We do custom Python stuff. I sent over one to you where it's just building. The big thing is, how do I replace myself as a business owner? And the biggest thing from a business owner really is like the accountability and management side. So how can I build systems and statistics and financial modeling around things that typically are unquantifiable, which is going to be, I guess it is quantifiable, right? But, it's building these systems in tune with the KPIs, in tune with what's going on, that people typically aren't kind of conceptualizing, and or they have, I would call it misconceptions about tracking your team, because some people are like, oh, it's not ethical, you don't want to be micromanaged. That argument doesn't correlate to what at least I have built. I know some other people have built things that do intrude on the personal life and such, but for me, it's just not how I run the systems. I build the systems to be accountable rather than, like a surveillance.
Yeah. No, I think like here's the thing. There are different kinds of employees, right? There are employees that are A players that are going to be at Apple, right? Getting paid like $400,000 a year. And they don't need an onboarding. They don't need any sort of project management that they got to check off tasks, because they are extremely smart and capable, right? You don't need to manage them. But on the other side, you do have like B and C professionals, which is just the truth, right? People that are not that rigorous and not that like performance driven. And so you do have to manage them. And so it depends like the kind of employees you have and the business that you have, right? We don't have margins to pay $400,000 a year for a team of like 30 people, right?
Yeah,
And so you have to build systems around your reality. I think that's what it is. It's like, yeah, people will say whatever about micromanaging and such, but it depends on the businesses that they have. It depends on what they need the employees to do. And so you just got to build systems on your reality. And I love what you said about, ClickUp, Slack. Is it Time Doctor?
Yeah, Time Doctor.
Time Doctor. And then on top of that, you have all of the custom automations that you do, right? And then even still, like the Time Doctor, Slack, and ClickUp, those still have to be configured around your own vision, around your own system, right? And then you put in all of the custom automation that ties all of those together so that, your employees are accountable, they're going to produce, and nothing's going to fall through the cracks, and your clients are going to get the best work from you that they're paying for. And so I think that's our job as business owners, to create those systems in order to have a service that delivers results.
100%. And when you look at it, even if a brand owner tried to build their own team, the math wouldn't math. It would be more expensive for them to try to build their own team than it would be for them to partner with us. And then they don't have any headaches. We have the proven systems. We've done it over and over again. You don't have to worry because we have reporting every week and yada, yada. So it literally financially doesn't make sense for them, because they would have to invest. I have spent in the last year alone probably $300K plus on software development, systems, the best talents, or the best support systems to give my talent. So when I get someone for $3K a month or $3,500 a month from overseas, I am able to plug them in and they become superhumans. I literally have I think of my business kind of as, we literally got transformers. I get people in here, they like put on these freaking gloves, and they got the SEO glove, and now they go like that, and it's just like, it's so in depth. I agree with you in terms of players don't necessarily always need those systems and checklists. Yet, even with grabbing a player, because for me, I'm very rigorous on my hiring process, and I like to say I only hire A players, and some of my mentors are like, Hunter, you don't need A players for every position. So like sometimes, but fulfillment, I always want my people to be like really spot on. Like I do IQ tests, not IQ tests, but critical thinking tests. I do very, very in-depth questionnaires and, all sorts of things that really weed out people. Typically I have around, like last month, I think we had 7,000 people apply, and I hire like 5 people from 7,000. So I'm very, very particular on who I hire. And with that, combining those diamonds in a rough with the systems, there's just no way that a brand, unless you're doing at least 3-4 million a month, is going to be able to replicate something that we do. It's just not going to happen. And even if they do replicate it, it is not going to be as effective. And if they came against my team, we would run a lap around them.
No, dude, so 2 points. I love what you're saying about the value add that you provide as an agency to a brand because you've developed all these systems, right? That does have a cost, and that does have a big impact on your day-to-day. You're like taking a shower and thinking about improving your systems. You're like taking a walk and thinking about this, right? Like your total being is kind of around developing new ideas for efficiency. And so I love what you're saying there. Let's expand on that a little bit. But, just before that, I would say that I want to touch upon the A player, what you're saying. And so, I don't know the answer to this, but you cannot compare someone that works for like a top company and, went to like, had the best education, right? They have like A's all throughout their middle school, high school, college, masters. Like that level of intelligence cannot be compared to someone who is going to be getting paid like, less than that, right? I think like really A players, they're on another category. They're not, that's what I think, maybe you can have an A player for the specific role you're hiring for, but it's not going to be like the most capable professional that you can get in the market that's going to be like, I don't know, a doctorate and do, develop like systems for billions of people, manage trillions of dollars, right? Like, how do you compare the two?
But I don't think you need that unless you're moving up and you're building like a C-suite. Because when we look at the business, when you look at Amazon, like, I don't want to say like a kindergartner could do it, but a lot of the things that are done a kindergartner could do, and there's only a select set of actions that require a very high level of intelligence. And that intelligence can be quantified through data and pattern, typically. The things that can't necessarily be quantified like that are going to be more emotional intelligence things. And yes, like someone that's going to be American that went to an American school typically is going to have a higher level of intelligence, typically. Unfortunately, and we're going to see this in the next few years. I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but America's going to get gutted in terms of the middle class and the lower class for sure. And it's going to all go to these countries like Pakistan, Philippines, Brazil, Colombia, where they have that work ethic and drive, and the money goes much farther. But someone like that, yeah, I agree. I mean, you couldn't take a player that was a PPC manager and put him into becoming a brand manager because he doesn't have the education or the training or the emotional intelligence to get that done. He only is going to be able to be an A player in that specific subset. And I derive a lot of that. And I'm also like, I don't want to say like I'm still learning, right? Like I'm only at 7 figures a year, right? Like there's people that are doing 8, 9, 10, 11 figures, and they definitely have more experience and a bigger opinion, or a more thought out opinion. Yet I think that's, if I had to say that, like, I don't think you need that until a specific point. And my mentor honestly got a little pissed at me because I was like, I kept bringing it up to him. I'm like, I need an all-star brand manager. I wanted to get one from an aggregator. I'm like, should I give him 15K a month? I'm like, I was saying some crazy shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, bro, you don't fucking need that. You need a junior, and you invest in them.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I went down, and it's been great.
No, and for sure, like when I think about the people that I've hired, I do have critical tests. And I mean, we go through thousands of applications to hire people that work for us in Brazil, right? So one of the big eliminators is English in Brazil, unfortunately. That just kind of wipes out 90% of the talent pool. But we get that 1% that does pass like critical thinking and emotional intelligence. And they are A players for what they can deliver, right? I do have people that are much smarter than me that can solve like critical problems much faster than me. And they do a great job, especially when they get plugged in to our systems, right? And so I think that delivering results for clients from a marketing perspective, a lot of times is doing what needs to be done, right? So you need to cover your bases. And what systems provide is making sure that all of the bases are covered, in my opinion, right? And so constantly monitoring, right? So having alerts if things are not going the way they should, right? Against like a particular KPI. Always updating, right? So always doing a new round of updates to the product pages, descriptions, SEO, thumbnails, things like that. And so when I look at systems and plugging people into the system is about the system is supposed to make sure that they cover all of the bases that I know has to be done for the marketing to work, right? One thing to touch upon is training. We didn't really talk about training, right? Because you can have all of the systems in the world. If people aren't trained on doing it, then it's not going to be done, right? Or the system is just so good that it doesn't require training. But I want to get your perspective on how you look at that.
Yeah, training super important. Also automated. So what I have is each role I've broken down. My hiring process is fully automated, all the way down to the vetting, down into the onboarding. So once we find a candidate, makes it all the way through, we change the status, onboarding. They get a link sent to them. They fill out that link. That link has a lot of questions on it that everything I need to know if I ever want to buy them gifts, if I ever want to get them, shirt, whatever, right? I have all the information there. That sends a ping into the channel, which then pushes into, we use Rippling, and it'll put them into our system, the start date, everything, a little bit of manual adjustments. I click accept. It approves it in there. That then creates, all their emails. It creates their Slack. It creates their ClickUp. It gives them the permissions, everything's set. And then from there, it pings back saying, this has been created. It then gives it to our team member that's in charge of the onboarding process. And we have specific Excel sheets that map out day 1 through 7, as well as 7 through 21 for each role on every SOP that they need to study with tests. So that Excel sheet goes out, they're monitored, make sure they go through all of it, and then by the end of that 21-day period, they're they know what they're doing.
Dude, you just talk about all of this like it's so simple, but
yeah, I've been trying to solve math problems like a mad scientist for a long time.
But it's not that simple, especially first of all, to create the onboarding process, and second of all, to automate it like the way you just described, right? So I think it would be really helpful for people listening to kind of be practical on what they can do. Like not, they're not programmers listening to this.
Yeah.
But what can they do in terms of like out of the box solutions, right? You mentioned Rippling.
The secret to life that I have found, or the secret to scaling that I have found, is knowledge. Knowledge. There's a reason why we met at AFA. There's a reason why I pay, $5K a month to be in a mastermind. There's a reason why I pay my mentors 2-3K a month. When I look at my bottom line, sometimes I get a little sad. I'm like, damn, I'm only making, this. And it's funny because when you first start, it's like 10K a month. That's all I need. Please, please. And then you start hitting 30K a month in profit, and then you're like, all right. And then that shit dips one day, and you're like, yo, I can't live like this, It'd be like 20K a month. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So with that, a lot of what I have learned is by paying people with the knowledge that I need inside the niches that I need. So for me, I have an Amazon mentor that has an Amazon agency. He's probably like 3 or 4 times my size. And I have been paying him for his systems for almost a year, and taking them and implementing them, taking them and implementing them, taking them and implementing them, and then automating them. So like, the realistic part is someone is not going to be able to do what I'm doing because, I have a full development team. So you can still do the manual steps. So the manual steps would be create that Excel sheet, build something in ClickUp that has, a template. So, hey, you need to go through this, make a checklist, and then just set, meetings every day to make sure that it's done. It's a lot more nuanced, but that's the thing. When you're smaller, you're throwing shit against the wall until something works,
Yeah. And it's all step by step, right? I think that you start out doing one process, and then after you have one process and you find, things that are working, things that are not working, you think about the next revision of it, right? And you just kind of go down that rabbit hole of stacking, which is a word that you mentioned already, stacking systems on top of each other. And, I love like how you kind of didn't really explain all of the step by step, because honestly, we can't do it in 10 minutes, but it's like you and I paid to be in the Agency Founders live event, right? Agency Founders Accelerator Mastermind, because we want to connect with other agency owners that are ahead of us, right? So we're at the, over 100K a month mark. We're seeing people that are at 500, 1 million, 2 million. We obviously want to get there, right? One way or another, we want to get there. And that's something that I've been paying since day one, is to join these masterminds. And that's actually where that's actually where I found all of my new ideas of different things, right? So like new ideas for improving my sales process, new ideas for improving my operational process, and then just hearing someone talk about it, have a conversation with them, and then learn how to do it, implement it, delegate it to my team, come back, right? And it's just like all kind of bits and pieces that you get from reading books, from masterminds, from coaching programs, and then you just start like assorting each of those one at a time. Some people just want to pay, something to have everything all at once, which doesn't work, right? I guess what works is for people to pay you to give them the service, where you've been spending all this time getting all of these bits and pieces of information, putting it into your agency, and then being able to provide that as a service. I guess that's how people can get, the sort of value from all this work that you do, by paying you to give that service to them. But if people are agency owners listening to this, right, I guess the advice that we have for them is to join these coaching programs and masterminds, videos, and then just solve one problem at a time, right? You don't need to join a mastermind, but you can go to YouTube and type in like, how do we improve my conversion for my Amazon page, or for my clients' Amazon page, thumbnail, SEO, right? And then you start putting all of those bits and pieces together. I guess that's my way to kind of interpret this information that you shared.
Yeah, 100%. And I would go a step further. I would hire someone that's closer to you in proximity. I think that's the fastest way to accelerate. I don't think you need to join these bigger communities, the high ticket ones, until you're at 100K probably. But if you're at like 20, 30K a month, I would join a lower ticket one and learn and get immersed in it and hire. I would start off with sales. Sales is probably the most important. That changed the trajectory. I was charging 1,500 to 2K retainer. Now I charge 6K plus. And that all starts with sales. To finding someone, literally DMing someone. Like if someone reached out to me and they're like, "Oh, no, I'll give you 3K a month," I'm like, "Hell yeah!" I'll throw so much freaking value. Their mind's gonna explode. But it requires kind of thinking outside the box and reaching out to people that you think aren't gonna want to share. Because at the end of the day, like it's people. What I find is entrepreneurs like giving value to other people, and specifically giving value to people that show appreciation. So if you appreciate them, you value what they have, they're going to be fucking stoked. At the end of the day, that's what life's about. Life's about pushing forward and helping us all grow in that passing of knowledge from here to here. And if you can facilitate that, most selfish thing that people can do is give, because it makes you feel good inside. So help other people
Yeah.
be selfish.
And dude, you like if somebody gives props to the systems that you've built and asks you about it, you're gonna start nerding out, telling them all of like the step-by-step ways that you've been able to build it, right? um, I wanted to touch upon one last thing before we start wrapping up. Um, I think that us as agency owners, the agency space is really easy to get into. It's really easy to start getting a few clients, and then pretty soon you start realizing like all of the hardship with being an agency owner, right? Being able to deliver results for your clients, being able to scale a team and make sure that your employees are working in what they're supposed to do. And, eventually you hit the problem of scale. You're like becoming pretty good as a business owner and operator. But you're like, man, I'm seeing all of these brands working less than me and making much more money than I am, right? But I do think behind that, we truly have an amazing skill, which is running an agency, running a service, is a lot of operational excellence, right? Building all of the systems. If you have a business that's making so much profit margin that you don't need systems to make sure that you're making a profit, you're not the same kind of business owner as an agency owner who needs operational excellence to deliver results for clients and to make money at the end of the day, right? So it's sort of a training school, I would say. I don't want to say that having an agency is a training school for me, but it is, right? I think any business, any situation in life is a training school if you have the growth mindset. And so that's why I think for us, the agency, and this is something that other people have touched upon in terms of agency owners, is that we're really building a machine that is going to find scale for us, right? And so it sounds like you're already mapping out your path, which is like, I have an agency, I've developed this unique skill to really scale brands on Amazon. Now, for me to really get to a next level of revenue, of work-life balance or whatever, you want to partner with brands. And so do you ever see yourself stopping to have your agency, or do you always see it as a way to just, find opportunities, find new partners? How do you look at running an agency in itself?
Yeah, I think that the agency is, like you said, it's massive amount of experience quickly. You see the market. I don't see myself not being a service provider just because of the cash flow. That's so nice. Being a brand owner, in the past, just having to wait for my cash cycles of 6, 8 months, very difficult to scale too, right? Yeah, you can scale with OPM, other people's money, and if done right and structurally speaking. So for me, I'll scale to about $1 million a month on the agency side, and then once I hit $1 million a month, I'm going to build some brands, and that will get me closer to 10 million a month. And then
There you
from
go.
there, I'll figure it out.
There you go. I love it. I love that you have these numbers mapped out and the path forward for you as well. Um, let's get into some rapid fire questions. You just answer them in like 5 to 20 seconds, but just try to cap it at that. What's the most impactful software or tool that you use to run your agency?
Yeah, just ClickUp, I would say. I think everyone should use ClickUp. It's such a good
Okay.
software.
How many niches is your agency involved in?
A lot, like 20 probably.
But they're all Amazon brands.
All Amazon, yeah.
Yeah. What's your average monthly ad spend for marketing and paid acquisition efforts?
How much do I spend on clients? Depends.
No, like
If
how
you
much do you
include some
spend
of
to acquire clients?
Right now, my customer acquisition cost is around $2,500 probably.
Okay. Can you share a unique tactic that you've used to acquire new clients?
My main funnel is via email, so all cold. I built a whole AI hunter basically over the past year and a half. I've trained this AI system on who I am, how I talk, psychology, system, structure, and honestly, it books me like 30, 40 meetings a month. So
There you go.
I don't have ad spend like theoretically, other people do. And my customer acquisition cost will start moving significantly down since that's almost finished in development. But now I'm going to switch into another vertical, probably. I thought about ads because I have all the leads and everything. But yeah, from that, I think email, you have to be sophisticated. That's the issue. Email is the best acquisition channel, in my opinion, for high-level qualified leads at the least amount of effort. But you need to be a very high-level marketer in order to market to other brands that have been burned 20 times in the past.
Right. If you could automate one part of your business, what would it be?
I think you got to automate everything.
Yeah.
For me, I have a tattoo on my back, 1% better every day, Atomic Habits, and that's what I live by. And there's only a few things in life that are truly scalable. Code is one of them, and for me, I put a large emphasis on that.
Yeah. What marketing trend do you think is overrated?
I think all marketing typically works if you do it long enough. I just think that the issue is multi-channel too soon. A lot of people, like for me, like email was working, then I went to YouTube. I got a few clients from YouTube, and I burned out. But I think all marketing works if you're good enough.
Yeah.
It's not the market, it's you.
For sure. I love that. If you had to only focus on one marketing channel, what would it be?
I like email
Email.
personally.
Yeah, I know the answer to
It
that
fits
one.
me because I don't like, like my goal is to not work, not do
Yeah.
anything. I want, with that, it gives me the motivation to work. But I live my life as the laziest salesman in the world. So I have also built an AI bot that does everything from my sales process. I just press a few buttons. It'll send emails and permissions requests and yada yada. So I think I get so efficient because I'm so lazy.
Yeah. How are you initially funded?
I'm self-funded. I've been bootstrapped this whole time.
What's your revenue, monthly revenue?
Right now it's around 100K.
How do you manage cash flow as you scale?
Agency's easy. I don't think cash flow is as much of an issue. I did run into a cash flow problem last month, particularly because at business we always have struggles, right? That old lawsuit caught up to me, and I had to
Yeah.
restructure my business and get a new LLC and move cash around. But a skill issue. I should have done better. But with us, if we run low on cash, we can just sell. That's
What's the size of your team?
My Amazon team is like 6 people, and my development team is around 8.
Okay. And what's your biggest bottleneck today?
My biggest bottleneck today is myself.
Okay. There you go.
I need
Well, Hunter, this has been an awesome conversation. And before we sign off, where can people find you?
You can get me on Instagram at Hunter. You can get me on Telegram at Hunter. YouTube is Hunter Harris Amazon. And if you want to send me an email, it's hunter@scalegigabrain.com.
You have the best Instagram handles, Hunter. That's amazing.
I've been in marketing for a long time.
So thanks for joining us, Hunter, and everyone tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to Growth Lab Sessions, leave us a review, and stay tuned for the next episode.